Welcome to Behind the Armor, where we deep dive into the heart of what matters. I'm your host, Judd Shaw, adventurer, storyteller, agent of change, and speaker on authenticity and human connection. Join me as we explore the complexities of human connection, featuring theorists, scientists, and speakers. Our mission is simple: to inspire you to reclaim your true self and create genuine connections with others. Join me as we lay down our armor and live authentically. Hello, you beautiful people, and thanks for tuning in. Today, I'm speaking with Cody Sperber, a Navy veteran and real estate expert, widely known as the Clever Investor. Cody earned this nickname for his use of highly creative strategies and innovative thinking. Cody is one of the most successful real estate investors and leading educators in the U.S. Starting with nothing, Cody eventually cracked the code and has since been on a massive profit and growth track ever since. Let's see what's behind the armor with Cody. Cody Sperber, so grateful and so appreciative for you coming on the show today.
Yes, thanks for having me on.
You know, by context, I wanted to give a little background about how you and I even came to this moment in our universe, right? And it really, you know, there's a picture back on the wall here, and I don't know if you see it. You see this moment? You remember that moment?
Look at those two sexy gentlemen.
Right? Look at that. And so this moment is what this was all about. And that's why I really so believe in the power of authentic human connection. You know, I'm at a conference. I feel like I'm the only guy there, around thousands of women there to see Jen Gottlieb, right? At this big event, learning to build your brand, your personal brand. And next is a guest that is asked to come on as a keynote speaker and named Cody the Clever Investor. Never heard anything about you. I don't do real estate, but I'm really focused on this human connection part about building the brand that way. And here you come out with a hat, with a white t-shirt. You're cursing. You're like throwing it down. And what I found so incredible was my magnet, my attraction to you, not because of all of your success, but because you were so real and raw up on that stage. And I'm like, I got to meet, like, that's amazing. This guy is, I was so interested in you because of your authenticity. And I remember after the event, I'm sitting there and I'm with my nephew Buzz, and you know, he says to me, "You got to go over there and meet him." And I was like, I can't look at, you know what this guy's all about. He says, "No, you got to go over there. Just introduce him yourself." And so I go over there, and I remember you're with your wife, Maria, and you're, you know, about to like order something. And I come over and I introduce myself. And at the end of that conversation, it led to this moment. It was like, remind me of this conversation and I'll come up on your podcast. How is that? How long have you been the version that we see today?
Yeah, well, first off, you know, that was a great event. You know, it was cool because it was a brand building event, and I was able to share some of my journey. You know, you're not in real estate, but you know, in the real estate space, I'm very well known. In the brand building space,
Absolutely.
I'm not really well known, but you know, I think what connected us was just me being raw and authentic, because, you know, real estate's a great business to be in. You can make a lot of money. And for many, many years, I made tremendous amounts of money and built a lot of wealth. But all the money in the world doesn't really matter if you're an unhappy human being, or if you're living out of alignment, or if you're if you're constantly breaking your own promises to yourself. And it's easy to make excuses in life, like when you're successful in one area. Like when people knew me or saw me online, they just saw the success side of Cody, the Lambos and the houses and the big deal checks and all the vacations and all that stuff you see on social media. What they didn't see was me hiding my pain and achievement, not being a great husband, not being a great father, not keeping the promises to my family, not having my health game on point and sacrificing a lot of my personal health just to make money. You know, I know a lot of people out there can relate to this. You know, how many times do we have to make tough decisions just to put food on the table? You give up going to the gym, you give up eating right, you give up sleeping well. And on the spiritual side, I was a pretty disconnected person. I didn't have a spiritual connection at all. I would have probably considered myself an atheist. And so there was like all these pillars of a person's life that nobody was really seeing. They were just seeing the success side of me. And unfortunately, a couple of years ago, my mom passed away right at the same time I was going through a divorce. And it was like this, just kind of like a come to Jesus meeting in life, you know, where you're like, you kind of hit rock bottom and you kind of think that you're at rock bottom, and then just something else goes bad. One more thing breaks and you realize that rock bottom has a basement. And it's when you're crashing and burning and kind of reevaluating, like, how did I get here? Why don't my kids respect me? Why is my marriage falling apart? How come I'm so far out of alignment with my words, my thoughts, my actions, my purpose? You're living like this double life. Like, where financially you're murdering it, but emotionally you're dying inside.
Yeah.
And you're a bad partner, a bad friend, all the things you're talking about, all the human connection part of it. I was so disconnected. And so at that moment, I had to make a choice. You know, what kind of man do I want to be moving forward? And I think that's what you connected with on stage, was just me kind of telling my journey of like, yeah, I crashed pretty hard. I had to kind of take a step back. I had a lot of really great mentors and friends in my life help me through that moment, where it was like the question I was asking was, how do I become the best version of myself? Like, how do I step into my full potential?
Right.
And I didn't have any answer or clarity on how to do that. It felt like I was just like running as full speed, but I was not going anywhere. And so I realized that to go forward, you got to go backwards. And I think that was the hard part for a guy like me. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur my entire career. I sold drugs, first candy when I was a little kid at school, and that morphed into selling weed. And thank God I never got caught, you know. And I got a bunch of my friends went to juvenile hall when I was a little kid. When I was 16, 17, a bunch of my friends got in trouble for dumb stuff. Nothing too major, but just enough to get them into juvenile hall. And I decided at that moment that I wasn't ready for college. I was just graduating high school, and that I wasn't ready for college. And so I followed in my dad's footsteps, and I went to the Navy. Yep. And by being plucked out of that bad environment where all my friends were kind of losers, and I went into the military, that's kind of saved my life, because it got me out of that environment. And after the military, I went to college, and then I started my own business. So I've never really worked for other people successfully. And so I was always very entrepreneurial, and entrepreneurs are really great at hiding their pain in their achievement and compartmentalizing and burying pain. And so I had this really bad habit of like taking every tough thing in my life and pretending it never happened, or like burying it. And I almost like hardened myself over many years to being like this psychopath, where it was like a light switch for me. If I was into it, I was obsessed, and the light switch was on. And if it wasn't part of that goal, everything else was like the light switch was off, and I just totally disconnected from it emotionally. And I did that in my marriage, and I did that in my relationships, and it hurt a lot of people. And I ended up crashing and burning, getting this divorce. And I realized, okay, if I want to change who I am moving forward, I got to figure out, like, why do I operate this way? Like, what's the rules of Cody Sperber's software program? Like, who programmed me? And I had some good friends. One a guy named Dean Graciosi. He's Tony Robbins' business partner now, and just a really big guy in the personal development space. And he used to be in real estate, and he's just a friend of mine. And he went through some similar things, going through a divorce. And I was just kind of asking him, I'm like, I don't understand how to step into my full potential. I don't understand why I'm so broken. And he was like, man, you got to kind of go upstream and figure out your subconscious programming. And so that's what I did. I went to a place called Psychological Counseling Services in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I went and got therapy for a week straight. It was 7 days, 14-hour days, and they just kind of unpacked who is Cody. And I don't know, maybe you can relate to this. I've never slowed down enough to ever even ask that question, or taken the time to try to like shut everything else in my life down so I can go and figure out the answer to that. And but sometimes when you're in that much pain and you're so out of control, and I remember when I was going through it, I was trying to manipulate the situation as if I could control it. You know, it's almost like you're like little white lies trying to cover up lies, little white lies. Like you're like just always trying to hustle to control it, because that's all I ever did my whole career, was try to control tough things. But you can't outrun this. And so finally, when I gave up control and I went to that counseling place, they did all kinds of wonderful things with me that I would have never have done if I hadn't been put in that position. And so the outcome of that was, through the therapy, I slowly started reprogramming my software system. Like, why do I lose my mind when somebody cuts me off in traffic? What are the things that piss me off? And like, what are my core principles that I run my life by? Like, do I have a clarity on that? And how many times in my life did I bury painful moments? Why was I an atheist? I didn't think about it, but like when I was a little kid, my grandparents were Pentecostal and extremely poor. We grew up in trailer parks, and we grew up in very poor areas of town, but my family was heavily, heavily religious. And there were so many moments as a little kid that I forgot or buried, of these really weird conversations around religion, or these, like my grandpa one time pinned me in a corner. I was probably 10 years old, and he pinned me in a corner and he started speaking in tongues, and his eyes are rolling back in his head, and he's, you know, like kind of like having like a weird seizure. And then after like 10 minutes, I'm crying. Like, I'm so scared because he was scary to me.
Yeah.
And he gets done and he grabs me and he's shaking me and he's like, someday you're going to be a pastor and you're going to lead a big flock. And I'm thinking, fuck you. No, I'm not. Like, that was the scariest thing I've ever experienced being a little kid. So no wonder I'm like anti-religion.
Yeah.
And so we started unpacking all that. And I think that's what you connected with. It's like, once you start becoming that raw and authentic and just real with like who you are and what got you there, I'm now on the other end of it. That was a year and a half, 2 years ago. And we can kind of talk more about that. But like, you come out of that experience, and I've been putting in work ever since. My health game is better than it's ever been. I am the greatest ex-husband on planet Earth. I promise you I'm going to get, if there's an award, I'm getting it. Like, I have a better relationship with my ex. We got a very high level, very expensive divorce with no attorneys. We are still best friends. I would do anything for her. Like, she is one of the greatest human beings on earth. I couldn't celebrate her or admire her more. And I think she feels the same way about me, just watching me rebuild me over the last 2 years into the man I am today. I'm a better father than I've ever been. I was just texting my daughter right before this. She's telling me all these secrets and thinks she's 13 years old. And we're more connected than ever. I wasted 10 years of her life not being connected to her. And now we have this just unbelievable relationship because I took the time to kind of go upstream and heal my inner child. And by the way, I'm going to just stop talking with this thought. The reason I was failing is because, and I had to discover this through the therapy, through the EMDR, the somatic release breath work, the one-on-one, the horse therapy, the acting therapy, all these therapy modalities, is that I couldn't show up for all of these people. I couldn't show up for my ex-wife or my kids or my business partners or my best friends, not really show up. Like, I was there, but I wasn't present, because you cannot give what you do not have. And I didn't have the unconditional love for myself, and I didn't even realize it. And that's why I couldn't give it to them. And so my journey since that breakdown was just how to really keep building on all of that momentum I did, because I feel 10,000 pounds lighter and I'm murdering it. Spiritually, I'm on point. Father game, I'm on point. Partnership game, I'm on point. Everything's just on point because I'm in alignment with my purpose again.
You're coming from this frequency, my brother, right? You know, my story so resonates with you. Um, you know, uber successful in the sense of jets and boats and planes and cars and all that stuff. And, you know, driven so much so that my teenage daughter, a lot of times I couldn't get the validation from the relationship with her because it came from the success. I was a success addict. Every billboard more that I was on meant that I was more lovable. Any person who recognized me on the street meant I was more valued. I was getting that from other people until all those cosmic bricks came down on me in 2020 when I was like, I'm a shell of a human. Like, what is this? I have anybody from the outside would go, look at this guy. He's, you know, on a yacht, a cruise. He owns it. He's living in a country club. And meanwhile, like, I'm broken, man, like inside. And I'm coming to work every day and I'm putting on the show. Hey, everybody. Hey. And, you know, until all of that came down, the weight of that, and said, you can't continue this way, you know?
So
And
what did you do about it?
I love that question. What I did was I was at this jumping off point so close that I was actually thinking about how to kill myself. Like, I was like, maybe I should off myself. Is that easy? I don't know about that. Like, I was having these discussions. I'm like, this can't be it. I can't have worked this. I couldn't have worked this hard. I couldn't have achieved this much. And at the end of this, this was it. This was it. And so I went out to California. I went into recovery. I went in rehab. I came out of rehab in 2020 in August, and I went on a journey. If there was something that somebody told me would help, I did EMDR. Great paddles. I'm doing the paddles. I'm learning about stoicism. I did this whole course on dialectical behavioral therapy. I did CBT. I did ayahuasca in the Mexican jungle. If I dunked myself in a cold bath. I mean, if you said this would help my mental health, I tried it. But ultimately, what I found at the end of all of those was showing up as me, because just like you hit it on the head, I realized that how can I love anyone if I didn't love myself? And so I went and increased my self-worth, and
I
then I
love
was
that.
able to love others.
I love that. You know, you're gonna go as far. You're gonna go as high in life as your level of personal development.
Hmm.
You know, there's a lot of
Yeah.
truth to that. Yeah.
And I want to unpack this. So let's go back to find so there's some actionable stuff here, because you're growing up and you want to be a ninth grade history teacher,
Yep.
and you
You
realize
did your
like, oh,
homework.
I did.
Yeah.
If for you to be on the show, you bet your ass I'm going to do my homework. And you know, and you decide that the people around you, you're seeing this, and I wonder how much of how you grew up, that dollar, because you decided the ninth grade teacher may have been a great job, and you make a great mentor, and you do a lot of coaching, and you've helped
Mm.
I mean, so many people in both real estate and just their own personal and professional development. And so you can tap into that. And I find it interesting that you wanted to sort of be a teacher. I could see that in your story.
Mm.
But yet the dollar was more important, meaning at that time, right? You're like, well, I'm not going to do this job. That's not going to pay. And when you went into the Navy, and by the way, thank you for your service. You came out of it decorated. You learned, you know, leadership and integrity and loyalty and commitment and these skill sets, but you come out and now you take all of that to the advantage of being a success addict, like driven. And then you have this dark night of the moment, right? Like most of us have, that come in and kick our ass and say, you can't keep going that way. When you were younger, how much of that, the idea, the concept of like the success, the material things, meant validation to who you were as a man?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, I was a little guy. Um, I didn't even hit puberty until I was probably almost 17 years old,
Yeah.
16 years old. So I was a late bloomer. And my son's the same way. That it's tough when you're the tiniest kid in your class. But we compensated that with being funny or being witty or having a hustle, right? And trying to like control what you can.
Right.
And so I was always chasing significance because I didn't have the respect naturally that the all-star quarterback had. I wasn't overly athletic at the time. I wasn't overly book smart at the time.
Right.
And like I said, we didn't have a lot of money. So it's not like, and I didn't have a lot of successful people around me. My dad was the most successful person in my life. He has been my hero and my idol my entire life. Like I couldn't say enough great things about him. But I mean, the man was making $60K a year, my whole childhood. Like my mom had a job working at the phone company or at an insurance company doing like low level stuff. We didn't have a lot of money, and my grandparents lived with us on and off, or we lived with them. And it's just so when you don't have a lot of success around you and you're completely out of control as a little kid, you're always chasing that significance. And so the business to me was the one thing I could control. This is what I mean by hiding my pain and achievement. I took all that pent up energy of the bullying, the sidelining, the being passed over, the being picked on. I can't even tell you how many hundreds of fights I got in where I just got my ass kicked because I was so angry inside. I would say something back to somebody and they would just kick the shit out of me because I was a little guy. And I remember, I mean, I got beat up by a Mexican guy named Turtle. Like just to put this in perspective, and he was littler than me and he kicked my ass. I was the kid that would talk shit and then I'd be running and there'd be like 9 Mexican kids chasing me in a parking lot. And I got my backpack on, like running trying to get away. And so it's like, when you're so out of control, you just are like, screw that. And so I had this defiant, like fuck authority energy in me. And that's why I always lean towards like, fine, I'm going to start my own thing. And unfortunately, I channeled some of that in a negative way in the beginning. I was selling drugs, kind of just low level, just weed to my friends. And it just got to a point where I'm like, if I get caught, I'm going to disappoint my dad and my mom so much. I can't do this, And so I chose to go in the military at the last moment. I actually went to college for like 2.5 hours. I enrolled in community college and I went and I walked around on campus and I went to I believe it was a biology class. And I went for about 35, 40 minutes. And then I stood up in the middle of the class, walked out, got in my car and never went back. And I immediately went and joined the military. Yeah, I had to get out of that environment. So I don't know. That's a tough.
When you're going,
I don't want to be like, woe is me. I had a good childhood. Like if you would have asked me at the time, like everything was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, that's the important thing is that a lot of people will think of, they almost like a guilt where I didn't grow up with trauma. Now I had childhood trauma. I had shitty attachment styles and unhealthy relationships and mirroring and all that, but for a lot of, people, they don't necessarily have to have big T's in their life to lead up to this moment where they have to change because the universe is coming down on them. For you found that in your success. It was almost unstoppable. It was,
I just knew I couldn't be controlled. I was so anti-controllable that I was a horrible employee when I did have a job for somebody else. I always broke the rules.
Yeah. And you're going through this though, but you still had what was the ass kicking moment, a couple of years ago that you realized that you had to make a change, as successful as you were, that you still had to make that change?
Mom had cancer and I'm wanting to get out of my marriage and it's falling apart. And I mean, that was the ass kicking moment.
Who were you able to speak to in those moments? And I asked because for me, I realized that when it came to really picking up the phone and going, I'm in a really bad place. The people who I felt even vulnerable enough, even brave enough to call was one.
Yeah. No, none. I didn't talk to anybody about
Mm.
it at all. Because I was carrying around this, I have millions of social media followers, and I got, 65 team members that I'm responsible for at my
Yeah,
company and all this
sure,
stuff. I always just shouldered that weight alone to nobody.
sure,
Yeah,
sure.
nobody. I think that's why we break down and we stress out.
Totally.
I carried it for a decade until I couldn't carry it any longer or didn't want to. You know what? It was a buildup. And I think anybody listening to this, look, there's three types of behavior, right? Green light, yellow light, red light.
Right.
It's pretty clear when you're doing green light stuff. You're eating healthy, you're going to the gym, you have a relationship with your creator, you're praying, you're connecting, you're meditating, you're doing whatever. You're in alignment with your wife. You're like yeah, I green light's easy. Red light's also easy. You're cheating. Like
Right.
you're gambling. You're addicted to
Right.
drugs and alcohol, and you're hiding your pain and vices.
Right.
It's the yellow light that gets you. The yellow light, it happens over a long period of time. It's like you're just kind of chipping away at your own integrity. Integrity is not keeping your promise that you made to other people. Integrity is keeping the promises you made to yourself. And so for
And I love
me,
that.
I was just doing all these little yellow light things. I'll give an example. I got millions of followers, millions of dollars. Nothing is more dangerous than a bored entrepreneur that has resources. I could get into all kinds of trouble. And if I'm going all over the country, I'm speaking at all these events. My wife is back at home. My ex-wife's back at home taking care of our little kids. I'm the motherfucking man. I come off stage.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to talk to me. Who do I
Mm-hmm.
talk to? The 45 dudes that need help, or the one hot chick?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm zeroing in,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I knew that was
Right.
yellow light behavior, but I liked the
Right.
attention.
Right.
I knew I shouldn't answer that fucking DM, but I liked the attention. I liked the danger, I shouldn't be doing this energy.
Yeah.
It's like I'm, a psychopath almost. Like everything that I ever did to hurt anybody, including myself, is all self-imposed.
Yeah.
And so I just slowly started doing all this yellow light shit, and it just built and built and built and built and built. I never got caught for cheating. I could have ignored it forever and never got caught. I got so good at hiding everything. Nothing was more freeing than that moment I made the internal decision that enough was enough.
What you mentioned is something that I realized was like the breadcrumbs to my healing, which was at first I had to figure out how to almost reparent myself. So what I did was I came up with 3 questions. And it's so interesting you say it in a green, yellow, red perspective. I hadn't heard that. And what I did was I said, is this good for you? Have you thought it through? Do you still want to do it? That's how I literally had to go through the, okay, I'm picking up this hamburger. Is it good for you? I don't know. Maybe it'll give me cholesterol. Do I want it? Yes. Is it hurting anybody else? No. I've thought it through. I eat the burger. Same thing if I was a social smoker at a bar. Yeah, I want to see I'm not hurting anyone. But when it came to those yellow moments and it was like, is it good for you? No. But then the next part, that intentionality, the consciousness of, have you thought it through and you still want to do it? Listen, there were still things that I went down that yellow behavior because I was learning, but at least I was questioning it. It was like a compass. And then what I described was having an operating system. I literally had a Judd 1.0 to Judd 2.0. And at work, I had core values on the wall. My companies have core values. And then someone say, well, what are your core values? What do you mean? What are mine? Well, what are yours? I realized, holy shit, I had no core values for myself. So how could I then decide whether I'm in alignment or not? And I love what you're saying, because that was a thing that when it was yellow, if I could ask it and understanding it under it, as long as I can stay aligned with my new core values that I established, I had created a whole new operating system for myself.
Yeah, that's great. I have my core values written down. My personal core values, I bring them around everywhere. I look at them all the time. Number 1, pick up the trash. Number 2, don't be a dickhead. Number 3, land the plane. Number 4, don't fill up on bread. 5, whatever it takes. 6, win and be humble. 7, lose with grace. 8, set the standard. 9, do the right thing even when nobody else is looking. And 10 is serve your way to success.
I love that.
Yeah. And some of them, you got to kind of really think about them. Like, don't fill up on bread. What does that mean to you?
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, keep the main thing the main thing.
What's the plain one?
Land the plane, finish the fucking job. Right? How many times do we start something and we never finish it? Right? We get distracted, or we listen to other people's opinions, or whatever gets in our way, and we never finish the damn job. And so for me, it's like, hey, we're not going to fill up on bread. We're going to keep the main thing, and then we're going to land this motherfucking plane. Just, and pick up the trash. That's a humble thing, right? It's like, don't be too big for your britches. Like, and people will know, like, I'll mop the floor. They'll be like, is the CEO really mopping the floor? Like, yeah. If it's dirty, I'll mop it. I don't have any ego when it comes to picking up the trash.
So, how often do you review your core values?
Oh, all the time. All the time. At least once or twice a month. At least. But I've now ingrained, they're part of me. Like, these are my things that I really spent a lot of time thinking about. Like, win and be humble. That's how I want to roll through life. Like, I could be cocky. I could go around and say, look at all the great things that I've done, but I don't like it when other people do that. So why am I going to do that? Just to feed my own ego? So these are mine. I think you should write down your core values, and I think you should look at them all the time and talk to them look, winners love to be around other winners. And if somebody rolled up to me and was like, dude, you want to change personal core values? I'd be like, oh my God, you're my people. Like, you're the man.
Right.
Those are the kind of conversations I want to have with other leaders.
I love that, challenging the core values. And I agree. I have mine written down too. And the way I look at it is constantly like, in the theme of operating systems, software updates. There are certain things that start to come up, around another 6 months. And I'm like, well, what is this that I'm really attracted to? How, what value is that? And then I get underneath that. And so, for instance, like this year is really like compassion. What is a core value? Because I know that for so long, like I would have wanted that for me, and I couldn't give that to others. And so I wanted to learn about what compassion looks like, and and empathy. And so I update those.
Well, when you figure out what empathy is, can you let me know?
I think the beauty of being empathic really comes from a story of being able to say, I know how you feel. I know what that looks like. And honestly, for us, there are when they say it's lonely at the top, fuck, right? Like, it's lonely at the top. And and so sometimes I didn't have the patience or the understanding or the grace to give to my team when I was driving 1,000 miles an hour. It's like, I'm writing your paycheck to do your effing job.
Mm-hmm.
And as I learned on the other side of Judd 2.0, that servant leadership, tell me more. What are you struggling with? How can I help you? Like, what can I do to help you? Boy, does that energy change the entire frequency of a culture, a work team, things of that nature.
Yeah, that's great. That's good.
So, Cody, I want to ask you, you're doing a lot of mentoring. You do the Clever Investor. What are some of the programs you're launching right now? What are you working on?
So I actually sold Clever Investor at the end of last year. The company Clever Investor, it was an education company. It's a phenomenal education company full of amazing team members.
Wow,
So
was that in the works for a while? Because I know when we
yeah.
first met, you still
Mhm.
had it. Wow,
Yeah. It's been in the
congratulations.
works for probably the last 6 months or so. But we completed the deal right before the end of the year. It was a great exit for me. I'm still heavily involved with making sure that the turnover and students and culture and everything just stays on point. It's the group that bought it is a phenomenal group. They're going to do really well. There's a lot of synergy between the two companies. They were a bigger company than mine, so they took all of us and all our resources and everything and rolled us up into them, which has been kind of cool to see. And it's been great because I started that company in 2009 is when I officially started working on it. 2010 is when we started the actual LLC. So it had been 14 years of me growing and scaling this to one of the largest online education companies in the real estate space. We've had over
Yeah.
185,000 students come through our program. I can't even tell you how many insane amount of success stories. Uh, thousands of people have gone off and either done real estate deals or just took our skills and things that we taught them and went off as entrepreneurs and started and scaled other businesses. So that's been awesome. And so that transition couldn't be at a better time because now it's kind of like you said, Judd 2.0, right?
Mm,
What is Cody 2.0?
yeah.
Where do I go with all of my energy? I'm 45 years old. I've been biohacking, so I'm going to live to be 245 years old. And uh,
I love that.
yeah, we're just going to stop aging.
I love
I'm
that.
I'm over the aging
I
thing.
love that.
But it's like what is next for me? And sometimes, especially as an entrepreneur, we start a business and we kind of get stuck doing that, and that becomes our identity.
Yes.
And everybody called me the clever investor. And even now, I have people that don't even call me Cody. When they see me, they're like, "Oh, what's up, clever?" And I love it. There's nothing wrong with that. I did a really great job branding. But now it's time to evolve. And so I
Mm,
relaunched codysperber.com. I'm helping a lot of other just, mentorship for CEOs and marketing teams to really help scale their marketing departments, or CEOs to do some high level consulting for CEOs that are trying to scale their businesses. I'm working with guys like you that maybe want to,
mhm.
do better at building their personal brand. They'll bring me in, pay me 10 grand a month for consulting on how to build their brand. I'll plug them into my entire content creation machine and team members and all that stuff. We've sold over $100 million worth of online education. So I got a very unique skill set of uh, running cold traffic ads to a funnel, to a webinar, a VSL, or to a book a call, to a sales process, to a follow-up process, to a high ticket close. And that can be applied towards a lot of different industries, not just
Sure.
online education. So it's been kind of fun just doing some consulting with some really high level badasses. At the same time, I'm starting and I'm getting ready to scale a flooring business called Floor Daddy. Floor
I
Daddy, yeah,
love that.
sexy floors, affordable
Love
prices,
that.
quality install. I love the home services industry. And so
Yeah.
you'll watch me.
Wow.
Maybe you'll have me back on your podcast in 2 years. I'm going to scale this business and sell it. The whole point of this is to scale and sell it. I love the home services industry. Once you're in somebody's home, if you think about it, I might be there to sell them floors, but then they need a kitchen remodel. Well, let's go over to
Mm.
Kitchen Daddy. Let's go over to Cabinet Daddy. Let's go over to Solar Daddy. Let's go over to whatever. So I own all these home
Yeah.
services kind of
Yeah.
other
On
businesses.
brand.
And so we're gonna start with the flooring, and we're gonna slowly build out the other businesses and the other niches. I'll have AC Daddy, right? Plumbing Daddy, all this stuff. And I'm taking a I don't know what's the right phrase. I'm stealing Bob Parsons' GoDaddy's concept of
Mm.
just kind of how do you make domains sexy,
Right.
right? Or fun or interesting.
Right.
And so we're just doing
Right.
the same thing. And he happens to be from here in Arizona, and I drive by GoDaddy all the time. So it was fitting for us. So we'll see. Have me back on in a couple years, and I'll tell you, hey, I exited that for $220 million. Now what's next?
But what it goes to show you is that you can apply your scalability processes and the marketing to flooring and do the same thing that you did with real estate. And that's how you can coach CEOs and other guys like me in doing it, whether you're selling widgets, time, or tires?
Skills are the skills. Yeah. And I tell everybody, like a lot of times young entrepreneurs come to me and they're like, what's the most important skills I should focus on in 2024? And it's like, oh, cool, great. Skill number one, sales, persuasion, and influence. If you can sell well, I like to call it enrolling. If you can enroll well, then you're going to enroll your way right up to making a fortune, right? You're going to, that's the number one skill that you need, because nothing matters until you can make sales. It doesn't matter how great your widget is. Like you got to be a killer on the sales side of things. And then once you get that down, I would say written sales, copywriting is another great skill to have. Really know, like I write all my own email copy. As a direct response marketer, I know how to build all my own funnels, upsells, downsells, side sells, all the email copy and all that stuff. You know, last year I did about 8 million through email marketing. The year before that, I did about 11 million through email marketing.
It's crushing it.
So imagine how valuable that is. I can go into any business. I can re-engineer your email list and probably double or triple your profits that you've made just from re-engineering your emails. Right. So copywriting is a great skill to have, and that direct response piece, understanding online funnels, direct response marketing. So I would be learning everything I could about, you know, what is a funnel? How does it work? How do you get somebody emotionally from a psychological standpoint to pull out their credit card and make a purchase online? Because that's where everybody's going, you know, nowadays. And people's attention span is so small. So like when I write all my own or produce all my own cold traffic ads, you only have a couple seconds to get somebody's attention when you're running an online ad. And so like really understanding, like how to hook somebody, how to create the problem, how to agitate it, how to create the solution, how to get a result.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, there's so much to the human psychology of that online shopper in the cycle of, you know, how many times you're seeing something and things of that nature. It's incredible. Yeah. You know, you and I share another common thing. We both went to ASU.
I didn't know that. That's great. You're Sun Devil.
Well, did you graduate?
Of course.
Well, that's the difference. I didn't make it. I showed up and I was like, I don't know about this schooling, but this place is heaven.
Yeah, there's some beautiful people that go to Arizona State.
I went there. It was an amazing school, but I found too much trouble there.
We were the number one party school, but you know, they've done such a fantastic job. Michael Crow has done an amazing job re-engineering that school, pumping insane amounts of money into the Tempe, Arizona infrastructure all around ASU. The real estate that's gone up all around that has been amazing to see. They've really invested. We're now, I believe we might be the largest college per student count in the country. Yeah. And there's a reason all the beautiful people come here.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I went there because of that party school reputation. Now I'd go there because it's not.
Yeah, they've done a good job.
How are the kids?
My kids?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Have 2 kids, right? How are your kids?
Amazing. Great. Unbelievable. You know, they're teenagers. So that's a whole nother conversation. Is like, I grew up with nothing. So my hustle comes from not having. Right. So I desired and wanted more control, more joy, more money. I used to have the Lamborghini poster on my wall and the Rolls Royce poster on my wall and the MC Hammer poster on my wall and the Michael Jordan poster on my wall. I had all these things and I would stare at them every single day and be like, I want success. I want money. I want this. I want to get out of having my fucking grandparents in the next room. You know, I wanted to be successful so bad inside. My kids have the Lamborghini in the garage. Right. It's not, there's a difference, right? There's a different energy there. And so it's like, how do I grow? How do I coach these kids to not be entitled little shitheads? And that's been a really fun challenge for me, just really getting them involved with helping people that aren't as privileged as them, and maybe whether it's, you know, serving local community or forcing them to work. You know, one of the best things my dad ever did to me, and this I applied this to my kids, and they know my kids never come and ask me for money ever. My daughter might do it a little bit more, like, Dad, will you help with this? Or how can I earn money to earn this? But my dad did something with me that I'll never forget. And I think every parent should do this. I went to my dad and I told him I wanted to buy a scooter. And he said all the things that somebody that doesn't have a great relationship with money says. What do you think? I'm made of money. Money doesn't grow on trees around here, all that stuff. But he did say one thing that I really respect. He said, how about this? What if we can come up with a way for you to create the money? And I said, okay, what are you thinking? He goes, I will give you a $40 loan. What can we take this $40 loan and turn it into? This is how I started selling candy. And so my dad literally had me go get a pencil and a piece of paper and draw out a loan agreement for $40. And that's how I got the funding to go start my candy operation. So now whenever my kids come to me and ask me for anything, I'm like, they already know. They're already coming with the loan agreement. Everything's spelled out, like the repayment plan, the interest rate, this. So I always force them to, like, you better come with a plan to create what you need in order to get what you want, because I ain't giving it to you. And it's been kind of my mission over the last, especially 2 or 3 years, going through the divorce, having them turn into teenagers. Like, all right, it's time to really ramp up the mentorship, the financial literacy, the mentorship side of things. I force my kids in a nice way to do ice baths with me. So every time they're over at my house, we're always doing ice baths because of that mental fortitude and that overcoming a challenge. And I'm getting them involved. I bring my son to work with me every summer. He hangs out with me. He's like my little protege, just hanging out with me all summer long. Goes to all my business meetings. Comes, I force him to just be involved. He helps me with my real estate deals. He goes out to all my projects. He thinks he's a little manager, managing all the team members at all our real estate development projects. So that's it,
I think though, but the best that comes from that is now they get to mirror the 2.0 version. Yep. The guy with these core values, you know what I mean? Like understanding a different relationship perhaps with money, understanding a little difference about humanity as they watch you be so real and raw. And I think what attracted me from the very beginning was the fact that, there you are on stage in your YouTube with your followers, in your business, in your relationship with, your family. You're the same guy. It's the same guy. Same guy.
Look, there's a lack of real leadership out there. Men need to step up. And especially if you have kids, it is your obligation to lead these kids to a place where they are connected. They are God-fearing. They have a spiritual side. They have a focus on health. They understand what alignment is and what being out of alignment is. They have a good example of you gunning on all pillars of life, not just killing it, making money. But like right now, I'm in this new relationship. And I think this is really important for your audience. I treat this relationship so different than my last one. I almost hate saying it because I feel like, wow, I really failed in my last relationship. How did I not see? You want to, I think it's Tony Robbins or somebody has said some quote along if you want to never have an end your relationship, treat them just like you did in the beginning, right? Like that's kind of the goal. Well, I operate now in total alignment with my new relationship, meaning there is no yellow light behavior. There is no hidden secrets. There is no password on my phone. In fact, she's in my DM. I logged all my social medias onto her phone. At any point in time, she can see everything that I'm doing, everything that happens. Every day, I pretend as if our relationship is being recorded. And at the end of the day, Maria gets to watch that recording. She gets to see and hear my private thoughts, my deepest, darkest secrets, how I talk to my friends when she's not around, every social interaction that I ever make, every interaction that I make at work. And she gets to watch this tape. And if she watches this, if she loves me more and respects me more, then I won that day. If it drives us further apart, then I lost that day. So every day I'm showing up like this is the Super Bowl of my relationship. I'm going to play full out. I'm going to stay in alignment. All behaviors will be green light. And by the end of the day, she's going to love me more. That's it. And now that I operate this way, guess what happens? The relationship thrives. It's so simple. And we're such idiots that we fuck it all up. And it's such a simple concept. It's just like women want 3 things. They want to be provided for. They want to be protected, and they want you to be present. And that's what I felt. I wasn't present in my last relationship because I was over here in the one thing I could control, because I couldn't control my home life. And so it's just, duh.
It's also because you're now so deeply connected with yourself that you can be so deeply connected with her.
That's it.
You know, I have to ask you now, in the end of all these things that you've done for so many people, family man, just how do you connect authentically with yourself? How do you do that best for you?
Yeah, strong routines. Strong routines. Every day I have a very strong routine, and I don't break character. I don't miss. Like, I might not be good at a lot of things, but I won't miss. You'll see me putting in the work constantly. I'm not saying I don't get tired, or not saying that there's many times that I'm negative or don't want to do it, but I just do it anyway. Like, I don't want to ice bath. I ice bath. I don't want to do all the biohacking shit that I have to do because I don't like needles. I'm still biohacking and do it because it's good for my health. And there's many times that I don't want to read the Bible, or, I don't feel like praying. I do it anyway because it's a muscle that you build. It's a habit. It's a relationship that I got to work on, whether you feel like it or not. You got to work on it. And so you see my routines are very strong morning routines, strong evening routines. And I think by building those muscles and being in that having that energy where I just refuse to miss, that I'm constantly staying on track, because it would be very easy for me to get off track. And I know, I don't go to strip clubs. I don't look at porn. I don't gamble. I don't do anything that I know is going to lead me in the wrong direction, because I know me. I know that if I do yellow light shit, I'm going to do red light shit. It's just, I'm going to go all the way to the finish line and self-destruct. So I just don't do that.
So good.
Yeah, just self-control.
So good. Well, Cody, it started with this. 2 guys being real and raw. You up on that stage again was this guy that I was enamored that you could be this person that I am still seeing today. And I couldn't be more grateful for you to come on the show today.
Well, I know who to call if I need a good lawyer.
Cody,
thanks for having me on.
Man.
I really do appreciate it. This has been great. Different time. I like this podcast is because this is just the real shit that men need to talk about.
Right.
Yeah. It's just, hey, look, I could have sat up here and taught you how to go make $1 million flipping houses or buying a commercial building and not paying taxes. Okay. How maybe I move the needle this much for you, but you might take one little thing in this and it totally shifts your psychology and changes the rest of your life. Way more valuable.
So true. I want to extend my deepest gratitude to you. If you've enjoyed this episode, please follow us on your favorite platform or share this episode with a friend. You can also follow me on Instagram at Judd Shaw Official. A special thank you to personal injury law firm Judd Shaw Injury Law for their support in helping us bring this podcast to life. Remember, friends, authenticity isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. It's about embracing our vulnerabilities, celebrating our strengths, and owning our stories. Until next time.